Can President Trump predict the future? Does he have a Marianne Williamson-esque crystal ball where he summons the dark psychic forces and sees into the future? No, but it sometimes seems like it is. And there's a very simple reason for this. The reason is ideology. Here's a great example of it that actually doesn't directly involve Trump. The mainstream media. So the mainstream media, they're like the counterexample. Trump looks like he can predict the future. The mainstream media can't see the present. They can't even see the past. They distort history. They distort what's going on in the present. They're totally blind to what's going on because of ideology. Here's the story. A Manhattan art gallery owner says that he was beaten by a bunch of thugs in the streets for wearing a MAGA hat. So he's got his red hat on, Make America Great Again. Because I know the mainstream media will immediately assume it was a white guy, not a white guy, I don't know what his ethnicity is, but he certainly isn't a white guy. He's walking around Chinatown, and this guy has a big shiner on his eye. Here's his side of the story.
He wearing this hat and started cursing at me, you know, saying, Trump hat, blah, blah, blah. And basically, one kid took my head and bashed it against the scaffolding pole. It all happened within 10 seconds. I jumped out, crossed the street, and I called the cops. And this is my situation right now.
Okay, no reason not to believe this guy. He's got a pretty brutal, gory shiner on his eye and his cheek. His whole left side of his face is swollen up with blood. His eye is basically swollen shut. And I'm not surprised. We've seen attacks like this before in the U.S. I mean, now, look, even when I go out and if I've got my MAGA hat on, I look around me because the left can be extremely violent. I was assaulted at the University of Missouri, Kansas City. Andy Ngo actually got really physically hurt. People were throwing things at him, punching him. So this thing does happen. We've seen it happen on camera before. It looks like we're seeing it happen on camera again. Two law enforcement sources said that they're a little skeptical that it was a huge group of people doing it. They think it might have just been a one-on-one brawl, and the guy declined medical attention on the scene. He went later to get medical attention. He was diagnosed with a bone fracture, so the guy's kind of broke his face up a little bit. Guess how much coverage this got on the network news? Boop, zero, none whatsoever. And the reason I keep using this term, allegedly, apparently, it looks like, is, I don't know, I guess there's a small possibility that this was a hoax. I don't know what kind of hoax it would be where a guy breaks half of his face, but let's say it is. Compare this to an actual hoax in the case of Jussie Smollett, right? Jussie Smollett had exactly the opposite story, that he was walking down the street and two guys in MAGA hats came up to him and said, "Hey, Empire," because someone's going to recognize Jussie Smollett on the street. Give me a break. Said, "Hey, Empire, this is MAGA country in South Central Chicago." Yeah, okay, definitely, guys, for sure. And it turns out the story totally fell apart. He paid his two trainers to come and beat him up. They were two Nigerian white supremacists, I guess. And it was just total nonsense, and he didn't have any actual injuries. The mainstream media, the network news, covered that story breathlessly. So the total fake story gets weeks of coverage. The apparently, from all we know, from all we can see, real story of an attack from leftists on a Trump supporter, no network news coverage at all. Why is that? It's because the fake story fit their fake ideological narrative, and the real story didn't fit their narrative. And because the real story didn't fit their narrative, they didn't cover it, because they privilege their ideology over the reality of what is in front of them. If you went to the mainstream media and left-wing politicians and you said, "Hey, what are you going to believe? The leftist narrative, the story that has been circulating all around the mainstream press for the last 2 weeks, or your own lion eyes? What are you going to believe? What is right in front of you, or the stories that you've all been telling each other?" You know that they would pick the stories. They privilege their ideology over reality.